Canada is known for shining on the world stage, whether it be hockey, our national parks, or even our politeness.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
But we're falling behind where it matters most. We're waiting more than 2 years to access new medicines. This leaves Canada last in the G7 when it comes to accessing approved life-saving medicines. Canadians can't wait anymore. We can do better. Click the link to learn more.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Paranormal Guys Inc. Radio. I'm your host, Jason Pepper, and want to wish everybody here in Canada a happy Canada's Day. I know it's not for another hour, but July 1st is Canada Day, and to all my American friends, happy America's Independence Day, July 4th. It's not too long from now, but I want to get that out of the way. I also want to give a quick shout-out to everybody in the Facebook group. All the associated links with Paranormal Guys Inc. Radio. Tonight we have a great show. Hope you enjoy it. It's going to be with Bishop James Long, and he's an exorcist and demonologist who also has his own paranormal show. We'll get him on very soon. Just taking care of a few things here that I'm a little behind on. Very busy day. Was down at Center Island with my kids for the afternoon, and had a blast. It was an awesome day. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in James now if we can. Hello, James. How are you, sir?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
As I was just saying, a very busy day. It's finally winding down, so I'm a little bit behind with some stuff, but hopefully it'll work itself out, which it always seems to do. How was your day?
You know, good. I just ministry as usual.
Yes.
So we just finished. Literally just got off the air ourselves. So it's going good. Just staying busy.
That's right, and it's always good to be busy. I always say, it's better to be busy than doing nothing and losing your mind. So we're on the right path, I would assume. Well, let's get right into this because I know you have performed quite a few exorcisms, and that alone in itself is absolutely amazing. But what's your actual belief system on the paranormal in general? Let's give the public out there who may not know of you how it all started and where your interests lie.
Sure. Before all else, I'm a theologian, and my ministry just happens to help people who are dealing with activity that is defined as paranormal.
Right.
However, I define it as spiritual. So for me, as an exorcist for the United States Roman Catholic Church, when I get involved with the case, it's primarily because we're truly dealing with a case of a demonic infestation, oppression, or possession. And when I get involved in those particular cases, we're not dealing with paranormal any longer. We're dealing with theological.
Right.
And it's my job as not only a bishop, but as a theologian to try to educate the paranormal community and say, listen, we got to remember that theology is a part of this, and we cannot secularize everything. And this is certainly, when we're talking about demonology, we cannot secularize demonology at all, because it most certainly is a theological term.
That's a very good point, and we should also break down as well that, there are Satanists who believe in Lucifer as their religious icon, and then there's demonologists who study demonology, and just want to clarify that because a lot of people confuse the two and they associate it with each other. It does have some connections, but we'll get into more detail about that.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and my concern, my deep concern from a theological perspective, from a ministerial perspective, is you have far too many people who have taken a theological term, such as demonologist, and have made it a secular term. Right. And this scares me. This frightens me because almost as if just simply saying, well, I'm a teacher, or I'm whatever. But they made it secular, and it's not. And it is absolutely 100% a ministry. It is a theological term, and we need to put it back in its place. And that's what I talk on. And people sometimes don't like my bluntness about it, but the fact is it is a theological term. And because I'm sorry.
How do you suggest that we bring it back to that? Do we disassociate it with any sort of almost glamour or glorified push? Because as you know, Hollywood has a part in all of
sure.
it, and they make demons and this sort of thing almost seem sexy and something attractive. How do you suggest we get away from that?
Well, through education. There's nothing sexy about someone undergoing possession. Absolutely nothing. It is a horrifying event. And when you are in the true presence of someone who is 100%, truly possessed, there's nothing sexy about that at all. It is a terrifying experience. And because not so much that I fear Satan or demonic entities, because I believe that through my faith and through my faith in God, that all things evil will succumb to the power of God. But I do believe that the power of evil does prevail on this earth, and I absolutely know, without a question of doubt, without a doubt, that possession occurs, and it's very dangerous. And what we're seeing people who are, again, what you're saying, finding the term demonologist and using this as a sexy term and saying, yes, I read a book and now I'm a demonologist today. Right. And they're going into these cases in which could be a demonic infestation, oppression, or possession, and they're going to get someone really hurt or even killed.
Right. And that's a good point to make, too, that the danger factors are real. And not only that, I'm also worried, too, that if somebody goes in and opens doorways to even stronger or more powerful demons and without even knowing it, is that something that you've come across as well?
Oh, yes. There's been times where people like myself who are in this ministry practically full time are tired of cleaning up the messes that are left behind by people who read a book and who now want to play demonologists and go to people's homes who have no business playing demonologists. The point is it's not a secular term, and it is a ministry. It is a calling, and that needs to be understood. And if you are not called to this ministry, then people should leave it alone. Now, studying it and wanting to learn about it and try to have some knowledge on it, now that's one thing. But when you say I am a demonologist, you are saying that I have a calling from God to study and commit my life to the study of demonic entities and their impact on humanity. And if appointed by church leadership, I will, in fact, act upon this ministry and assist clergy in investigating cases that could be demonic infestation, oppression, possession. Again, this is a ministry.
Right. Now, I have two questions for you that you may be able to answer as an expert. One, when you approach a case and it does determine that there is a possibility there, how much mental illness plays into some of these cases? Because that's one of the factoring issues that seems to be associated with this, and a lot of people discount possession as a temporary mental breakdown or, psychotic event. How can you prove to the people out there that that's not the case at all?
Well, mental illness will not cause someone to levitate. Right. Mental illness will not cause someone to speak a dead language that they have had no training in whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Mental illness will not cause a person to speak the Our Father in Aramaic backwards as a form of mockery. Right. So, and plus an exorcist, a trained exorcist, and there's a distinction between a demonologist and an exorcist. And again, here we go by explaining the difference between the term. A demonologist is one who has studied demonology, who has had a calling to study in this ministry to assist clergy in cases that are obviously demonic infestation, oppression, possession. An exorcist is an ordained clergy member who has been trained in demonology and psychology, and who is tapped by a bishop to perform the solemn rite of exorcism. Now, there is a very clear distinction between a demonologist and an exorcist. They are not the same thing. And what we have is people within the paranormal community who, again, are secularizing the term demonologist, and they're saying, well, I'm a demonologist, and they're performing rituals that they have no business performing. So they're crossing those ethical lines. They're saying, well, I'm a demonologist, and I'm going to perform the solemn ritual of exorcism. Well, now you're saying you're an exorcist.
That's a great point.
And in 1 Kings, it actually is very clear. In 1 Kings, when the two men who were going around saying that they were an exorcist, and they were performing these alleged exorcisms on people, and they went to this one person possessed, and the demon said, Paul I know, Christ I know, but you I don't. And they attacked them. The demonic entity attacked these people that were committing fraud because they weren't trained.
Well,
that's the scripture.
As an ordained minister, bishop, or pastor, if you are, a trained exorcist, would you include a civilian in any way, fashion, or form, or do you feel that compromises the procedure?
Well, when you say civilian, as far as a demonologist, yes.
Yeah.
If there are demonologists that are properly trained in the field that I need assistance with performing. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about the difference between a solemn ritual of exorcism and the minor rite. Those are two different things. Right. And deliverances. So really, we're talking about three different essences here. The solemn ritual of exorcism can only be performed by an ordained priest or clergyman. Now, when I'm talking about ordained, I'm not talking about going online, paying $60, and congratulations, you're ordained. That's not valid ordination. Valid ordination is laying hands upon this person through apostolic succession. That is valid ordination. Now, so I can show my apostolic succession to Peter. And so you have to have apostolic succession. That's valid ordination. Only those people who are properly trained in demonology and who are validly ordained and tapped by a bishop may ever perform the solemn ritual of exorcism. The minor rite of exorcism should be performed by a priest, by a clergy member. That you're dealing with a demonic infestation case. That's a blessing on a home in which the priest will invoke or provoke the entity to manifest itself to perform the minor rite of exorcism on the entity that's present. A deliverance prayer, the laity can perform. That's prayers in which there is a presence, a negative energy that is present, and the laity can pray a cleansing, if you will. It's a minor cleansing. Right. Those are three different prayers. The minor rite of exorcism, I would bring a demonologist with me for a minor rite of exorcism, and I have. But when you're talking about the solemn ritual, that's completely different.
No, have you ever had any residual effects from any of these cases that you've dealt with within yourself? Minutes, hours, days, weeks after, where you just get the sensation of something lingering?
Sure. Absolutely. And any exorcist who's in this field will tell you yes.
Mm-hmm. Can you perform a self-exorcism? Does it work on your own soul or your own being?
Well, remember, the demonic entity will possess the body but not the soul.
Right.
And so, therefore, my soul is not in peril. Okay. Demonic oppression is when a demonic entity is attacking your intellect and will. Now, that is what's called, that's secondary information. That we know through reading books, etc. However, I have found that we need to include one more element into that. So when a demonic entity attacks your intellect and your will, it's breaking you down for the sole purpose of possession. My argument is say, yeah, but we're forgetting a third element, and that third element is faith, because it begins to attack your intellect, your will, and your faith. Because then not only you begin to give up and you begin to doubt the existence of God, but those people who are around you who love you and see that you're actually deteriorating, begin to doubt the existence of God as well.
Right.
So, but can I perform an exorcism on myself? No.
No. Okay. And do you feel that there's more evil entities or demons or negative spirits roaming the earth now? And if so, has the Vatican or any other establishment upgraded their approach on tackling these sort of new spirits, let's call them?
The Vatican has actually expressed an interest, a higher interest, in training its clergy for proper, dealings with demonic infestation, oppression. And so they have actually responded to this favorably. And so they've actually had a calling for priests who actually want to serve in this type of ministry, who are called to serve in this type of ministry. So the Vatican itself has actually increased its awareness and training in this field. Now, do I know if in fact we're dealing with a higher demonic entities that are present? I see the problem is we don't know that. Right. We don't have the data to show, in fact, the cases in the 70s or 60s or 50s to compare it to what it is today. I can say that there are more people who are willing to speak about those cases, right. Which is obviously a very good sign, because people are now, I think primarily because people are becoming more willing to speak about it and know that they're not alone, that there are people who understand what they're going through.
Well, you made a really good statement, not really good in the sense of what's happening, but it's something to be mentioned, that one of the aspects is the loss or the losing of faith and belief in God, and those around you losing it as well. Would that in itself open the gateways for more demonic possessions out there? Because with such low spirits of humanity, they'd be easy and vulnerable to invade. Is that correct in that judgment?
Well, I have found that the closer you get to God, the harder the devil works against you.
Yes.
And so those people who have faith, who are doing good work, who are in ministry, are struggle quite often with their faith. Mother Teresa, even in her book, talks quite often about how she struggled often with her faith in the existence of God. And so I always taught, even in the seminary, the closer you get to God, the harder the devil works against you. And I believe that. I do believe that. We live in a world where it's very hedonistic. It's all about me. It's all about what I can have and what I can get and what I can take. And it's an unfortunate situation because we've lost, I guess, that the mentality of helping each other. And I don't know if that's... I'm sorry?
It's true. I actually totally agree with you that the community outreach aspect of everyday life is gone. It's all, you close your door, that's all you care about is within your own surroundings, and you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, it really is. It's very unfortunate. But, there are people who are still trying to reach out and do good work. And it's not all bad. There are people who are still doing wonderful, wonderful work. But nowadays, when you help someone, their first instinct is, okay, what do you want?
Yes, totally true.
Whereas when I was a child, if someone helped you, you just say, well, that's nice of them.
Yeah,
it's interesting how it's changed.
Well, let me ask you this, too. There are certain prayers and protection rituals that some ghost hunters go through to protect themselves. Do you have any particular ritual as an ordained bishop that you go through, or is it just the faith and the reading of the rituals that you mentioned earlier that are protection enough during?
Well, yeah. Well, we're talking about the solemn ritual of exorcism. The rubrics are very, very specific about what an exorcist is required to undergo prior to performing an exorcism. The solemn ritual. Remember this, when I say the solemn ritual, I'm talking about an exorcism that's performed on a person who is possessed. And let me just say very clearly that the rubrics are very clear. And when I say rubrics, I'm talking about the rules, the guidelines.
Yes.
The rubrics are very clear that only a validly ordained priest may perform the solemn ritual of exorcism. Period. That's what the rubrics call. Now, what I find insulting is that you have so many people who are taking the solemn ritual of exorcism and they're using it and they're not validly ordained. Well, the problem is that would be like me taking a shamanic ritual and performing a shamanic ritual. I'm not a shaman. And that's why I find offensive. It's because we got to follow the rubrics and accept the rubrics and respect the rubrics, what the rubrics call for. For me, as far as prayer, when it comes to the solemn ritual of exorcism, the rubrics are very stringent about what is called for. But if I'm going in and doing an investigation, certainly prayer to Saint Michael the Archangel, the Our Father, Hail Mary, the Rosary, etc. But really, I have found that just personal prayer, prayer that's not memorized, words that are not memorized, just prayer from the heart, prayer to the guardian angel, is what always calms me before I do any type of investigation. Or any type of, if I know, in fact, I'm going into a demonic infestation case, oppression, or possession case.
And you've done so many at this point. Let me find out, though, do they still scare you? It's good to be scared, and I understand that, but do they still scare you, and get your heart pumping and the adrenaline flowing, or are you so set in a particular method now that you can go in there and almost phase out the interferences?
When you walk into a situation where someone is possessed, you feel it. The sensation is overwhelming, and anybody who's ever actually experienced it, and anybody who's actually ever really experienced someone truly possessed knows what I'm talking about. The overwhelming sensation that you feel encompasses the entire body. But someone who's properly trained knows how to control those emotions, because if you don't, the demonic entity will control them for you. And so it's very important. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask a question for the animal lovers out there. Have you ever dealt with possessed animals? I know that might sound silly, but there are people out there that are so attached and connected with their animals that it may be relevant to them. Have you ever encountered that?
I have dealt with cases in which animals' behavior have dramatically changed, especially in cases where the people have moved into homes, and the homes were horribly infested, and animals have gotten sick or their behavior just horribly, drastically changed.
Right.
Yes, I have, and of course, by performing the minor rite of exorcism on the home, that obviously eradicated the problem.
Yeah. Okay, so it would be more of a not so much a person possession as you mentioned earlier, but actual location possession. And could it be even more broad than that? Could it be, like a county possessed, or a town, or an entire state at any point, or do you think that it doesn't work that way?
I've never had the experience of an entire town. When you start talking about towns and things of this nature, then you're talking about the possibility of curses.
Yes.
And so, from my experience, I've never dealt with the entire town that's had the curses.
Okay. Because the only reason why I ask that is all throughout history, as you know, there's been horrendous activities taking place within towns or cities or villages that are just unexplained, and could it be possible that they were all possessed at the same time to do these acts? And
the towns themselves are not the towns are not possessed. We're talking about demonic infestation. So we have when a house, because the house is not possessed, we have a demonic infestation. Yeah. So when a demonic entity is present, its presence for the sole purpose of destruction of the human person, and so then that's when you call someone who's properly trained in demonology, and it will make itself known. I mean, there's no doubting, there's no guessing, and that's what infestation is when a demonic entity has infested itself within a home or building, place of dwelling.
Okay, and let me ask you this from your perspective. Do you believe that Lucifer or Satan is behind this at this point, or is he at such a power point in his existence, for those that believe or may be aware of him or whatever, or do you feel that he's kind of stepped back and let other forces take place and kind of run the show?
I don't believe that Lucifer has stepped back. I certainly think that Lucifer is certainly present. I most certainly think that he is most certainly present. Angels, I do believe the existence of demonic entities are fallen angels.
Yes.
Lucifer was a very powerful angel, in fact. And so I believe that Lucifer has a very strong hold on what is occurring, but that's just my own personal opinion.
Right. And it's something that a lot of people feel too. And
sure.
Why is there such a fascination with the human, taking over the human body? Is it because some of these entities, as you said, were fallen angels and never got to experience what it's like to be in a corporeal body?
Oh, no. There's no desire to actually be in the body just to see what it's like. The whole purpose of in the body is to destroy the body. The reason is you have possession is for the person to ultimately commit suicide. When a person is possessed, the body ultimately, the number one destruction of the body is dehydration, malnutrition. So when a person is possessed, the demonic entity will normally not allow the person to consume food or water, because those are substance of life. And so if you try to give the person any form of substance of life, then the person becomes violently ill. And so, when I say violently ill, constant regurgitation to the point where they don't stop. So it's a destruction of the body. So not only it goes back to, again, so now possession has already occurred. So now the body is now dying, and the faith of the family is now being shattered because they're seeing their loved ones literally deteriorate into nothingness. They're seeing the shell of their loved one just deteriorate rapidly in front of them.
Is there any specific age group that this targets? For example, you must have been asked a million times to compare the Exorcist movie to real-life situations. Is it based on? It is based on some facts that are truthful, but from your experience, is it more targeted towards that age group? The preteens / teenager, and then what? Fill us in. How does it work? Can it take
usually the age of reason, 13, 14. 13 is awfully, it's young, but when we get around 14 years old, you get the possibility of possession could take place.
Right.
The Exorcist story is, of course, loosely based on a true story. Of course, it was done on. It was a little boy who, in fact, was possessed, and not a girl. And of course, there was a lot of Hollywood, obviously, input on the movie. However, I have found that rather than The Exorcist being, I guess, the focal point on determining if Hollywood got it right, maybe we should look at The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now, when I was in the seminary, I have actually I have all the recordings of every exorcism that was performed on her. Her name was Anneliese Michel, and she was a young German girl. She was a devout Catholic. And, of course, Hollywood made a movie. It's Exorcism of Emily Rose. That was about 95% accurate. And I studied the case extensively. And so what she endured was pretty horrific. So if you've seen the movie, that's pretty accurate to what she had to endure.
That's unbelievable because, and I'm glad you said that because, as you know, with Hollywood, 95% of the time it's the absolute opposite. It's fabricated and glorified and
sure.
Made to sell tickets, and that's it. So I'm absolutely glad that you said that. And have you encountered any cases that severe in your
yes.
Experience?
Yes.
How do you walk away from it and sleep at the end of the night? Because that must just constantly replay itself in your mind over and over and over again.
It does. It does. It's something that you don't ever. It never goes away. It never will.
Right.
She was a young girl. And there's a difference between demonic possession and diabolical possession. Diabolical possession is when you have multiple demons. When you're dealing with the diabolical possession, the chances, and of course when you're dealing with full possession, the chances of survival are very slim. And the reason being is because the person is being attacked constantly, and there is no rest for the body. Transient possession is when a person goes in and out of possession. So the possession can take place for years, but there's a constant wear and tear on the body. Annalise McKell was under transient possession, so she would go in and out of possession. When you're dealing with full possession, the person needs help immediately. I mean, the chances of the body deteriorating and expiring are incredibly high. That means a demonic entity or demonics or demons will not leave. Now, when you're dealing with diabolical, again, you're dealing with multiple. With Annalise's case, that was a diabolical possession. The case that I was the assistant exorcist to, that was probably the worst case I've ever had. To where I was the assistant, and that was a case in which I'll never ever forget the experience of seeing someone's eyes, the entire eyes becoming solid black.
Wow. And
it's a black, I mean, where there was no whites. There were no whites in the eyes. And it was a blackness where, I mean, you saw your you saw your image. You saw your face. And I just remember I couldn't think, I couldn't talk, I just stood frozen, and all the fear, anxiety, everything just completely encompassed my entire body. I mean, for that moment, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move.
Unbelievable. And, that's the thing too. If I can picture it in my mind from what you're explaining, but to be there is a totally different thing.
It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. It was the emotional impact was very rough, of course. But seeing this girl going through this stuff, and then hearing it scream, and the noises that it would make, that was my first case, and that it was just when you hear that noise, when you hear the screaming, it was troublesome.
And like in the Exorcist, this is another Hollywood question. Do these spirits or demons or devils or whatever they may be reveal their names, or is that completely Hollywood?
Well, actually, in the solemn ritual of exorcism, the rite actually calls for the exorcist to force the entity to manifest its name. The reason being is because when you know its name, you know its identity, and that's a form of control. And so, therefore, it's very important that you gain the identity of whatever demonic or demons that you're speaking to. Understand that this is not about having a conversation with a demonic entity. This is about the exorcist controlling the entire conversation, because often the demonic entity will trick the demon or trick the exorcist and try to get into a conversation, to manipulate the situation, to manipulate the ritual. And play mind games. And so it's not about having a conversation. It's not about allowing the demonic entity to manipulate the conversation at all. And so the ritual calls actually for the exorcist to demand the name. And yes, the demonic entity will fight and lie and try to, and you just continue the ritual until it is a process where you're beating it down and wearing it down until eventually it succumbs. And then, of course, you cast it out.
And at the conclusion of the procedures and the exorcism, is it absolutely guaranteed? Nothing's ever guaranteed, but I have to ask anyways. When you cast out this spirit, does it always go back to hell, let's say, or into a waiting area, or can it just leave that particular situation and travel to another area?
Theologically speaking, it is believed that once a demonic entity has been cast out and exorcised from an individual, it is forced into the sulfur lake, the fiery lake of sulfur that Revelation talks about.
Okay, so, but in your experience, though, have you ever encountered the same demon or spirit twice? And
I have experienced what the same demon claims to be the same identity.
That's very interesting, and let's give a little insight too that there's a phenomenon that happens, and it's called stigmata. A lot of people confuse that with being possessed as well, and it really isn't. It's more of a manifestation of one's own ability, let's say. In your opinion, how do you tell people and clarify that up for them in a clergy sort of way?
Yeah, the stigmata is an outward sign, outward miracle sign that Christ is present among the faithful. And stigmata is not a curse. It's not. Of course, there's a famous movie, Stigmata, where the girl didn't want it, and it was a terrible curse and all this other stuff, and she was possessed and blah blah blah. No, that's not stigmata. Stigmata usually affects those people who are very, very faithful. I mean, we're talking people who are close to sainthood, people who are in constant form of prayer, who have a very close relationship to God. Those individuals are the people who have stigmata. And certainly those people struggle at times with stigmata because, just like Padre Pio, there were times when he got frustrated because he is human. But at the same time, it was not seen as a curse, but rather as a gift. So it's God's presence showing that he is still alive. It's an outward grace of God showing that those people who are faithful in prayer, that they too share in the crucified Christ.
Right. Very good, and I'm glad that was said. How about the overall fight, good versus evil? Do you believe that good's winning, or do you believe it's a balanced, even playing field, and every day is a new struggle?
You know, good will always win. Good will always win over evil, no matter what. Even when we are so downtrodden and we think that there is no light at the end of that tunnel, there will always be that light, no matter what. No matter what. And the story of Job is all too real today. People sometimes need to remember that the stories in Scripture are very relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. People are losing their homes. They're losing everything that they own, especially in our economy. They're losing everything. And they're getting on their knees and saying, God, where are you? And those are the tough questions. God, where are you? But he's always there with us every time we fall. Because we're going to get back up, because this is a temporary, economic, difficult time for many of us.
Right.
And so yes, I always believe that good outweighs evil.
And let me get your opinion on another subject that some feel has demons involved with it too, and that's ufology. I know the Vatican has embraced the possibility of life outside of Earth. How about yourself, though? Is that something that's going to take a while for yourself and other members of the clergy to embrace and accept?
No, I believe quite possibly that UFOs exist, or I believe that alien life form on other planets exists. Now, when it comes from a theological perspective, then we have to determine, well, do they have the knowledge of God? Do they have the knowledge of self? Or do they have a soul? Do they have the knowledge of the crucified Christ? Et cetera, excuse me, et cetera, et cetera. But so I mean, it does open up a very interesting theological discussion. But one thing that I have a very serious issue with is this. I think there's a theory that people are forgetting to realize. Just as the human race exists, there are people within the human race that do very evil things. Mm-hmm. We know this, the killing and child molesting and doing some really terrible stuff. I believe also that alien life or alien UFOs, etc., that abduct human beings without our consent are in fact representing or representative of the rapists and the killers of our society. I believe it is those people who go out, those aliens who are going out and abducting us without our consent, who are harming us and doing terrible things to us. My theory is they are harming us, and in some cases, some believe they're killing us. And they're going against our free will.
Yeah, it's a very unique way of looking at it, and in all honesty, it has a lot of truth behind that, and it's something I actually didn't consider for some reason, and I should have, because you're absolutely right. There might be a sadistic, psychopath sort of method behind those sort of abductions, because there are other stories of abductions where it's absolutely peaceful, and they had, a very enlightening moment, and a message was given to them. And then there's those stories, as you said, where they're brought aboard, practically molested, raped, severed in some cases. As you said, it's very sadistic and evil.
So the question is do they represent, in fact, the killers and the rapists of their society? And I think perhaps maybe we need to consider the possibility that exists. Because, in fact, if you force someone against their free will, that is an evil act. It's objectively evil. If you force someone to do something against their will, it's evil. Now, if the person consents and says, I wish to go with you on your ship, this is what I want to do, then that's a different story. But if you are forcing the person against their will, you have an evil act. And therefore, it violates the natural law. Avoid evil, do good.
Absolutely. And that's something, that can play into anything, even in our everyday lives. That's advice that goes for everything. If someone forces you to do something against your will, it's absolutely wrong.
Absolutely. It's objective.
Exactly. I want to get your opinions, your personal opinion, and maybe even from stories that you heard from other people within the church. What about other stories and phenomena that are reported around the world? Does the church have interest in things such as Bigfoot, or Loch Ness Monster, or are these stories that sort of stay on the outside and never make their way in there?
There's in logic, there is a term called argumentum ad ignorantium, and that means argument from ignorance. There's no proof that Bigfoot exists, therefore he doesn't. Now, in logic, that's called a fallacy. That's an error in thinking. Just because we currently have no proof that Bigfoot exists, that doesn't mean he doesn't.
Right.
So we have to assume that the possibility could be that he does exist. So I'm under the impression, I believe that the fact is that because there are so many sightings, because there are so many people who in fact are credible, very credible people. We're talking sheriffs and police officers and people who are trained in witnessing and see, being able to easily target whatever it is that they're trying to target, and they're clearly seeing something that cannot be explained. And I don't think we can just simply toss away and say they're all seeing bears. I think a person who has been properly trained in wildlife conservation can determine whether or not they're looking at a bear versus a Bigfoot.
And what about spirit hunters or ghost hunters? They're absolutely driven to what their cause is, and they have some people out there have amazing evidence. Does the church look poorly on that? Because I personally have a lot of Catholic friends, and one thing they believe in more than anything else is the existence of ghosts. How about yourself?
Well, I certainly believe that human spirits exist. And the reason is I believe that human spirits exist is because they haven't gone through the process of or transition of letting go. When I perform the last rites or the anointing of the sick on someone, I literally see their body let go. I see their body completely let go of all tense, of all. They come at peace. everything in their whole entire body, you just see them let go. When someone passes away and they haven't gone through that transition, I think they're still attached. It's an attachment process that they're still going through. And I think human spirits remain because they're still attached for whatever reason, whether they're attached to a building, a house, relationship, whatever it is, they're still attached and they haven't. Remember, heaven is not forced upon anyone. Heaven is presented. And we can choose heaven or we can reject it. And that because it goes back to free will. So God does not force anything upon any of us. And so I think if those people who haven't gone through that process of detachment, I think that they're there because once we pray for them and ask God to guide them to where they need to be and their angels to guide them and forgive them for all their sins, etc., I think once they become at peace, I've done deliverance prayers where it was so amazing and so powerful. You felt just an overwhelming sensation of, honestly, I know this sounds cliche, but me and a couple investigators were in a room. It was 90 degrees in this room. Air conditioner was off. We turned it off for a reason. We were in this room. We were praying for this person who was clearly there, and this gush of wind just came in this room. I mean, the temperature dropped to 50 degrees, and it just, all of a sudden, peace. It was the most powerful experience it was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in my life.
Now, let me, I'd like to ask this question to people that are UFO enthusiasts and believers or researchers. If there was an invasion of UFOs or even the landing and the absolute confirmation of alien life, would that in any way, shape, or form change your faith?
Well, no, I wouldn't change my faith. I think it would be very interesting because I think the cross is transcendent over time. Right. So I think when you're talking about the cross, we're not talking about something that is of only time or space or restricted in time or space. The cross represents, to me, a destruction over sin and death for all creatures, for all of God's creatures, souls, those people who have obviously rational souls, and granting us eternal life, completely destroying sin and death no matter where or what planet or what universe, what solar system, completely destroying sin and death, period.
Understood. And here's a harder version of that question. What if it turned out that these, like the typical gray alien with the big eyes, as many times reported by abductees as the stories itself, turned out, in fact, to be God? Would that change the way you look at things?
No, because I would say probably, here's what I would say to that. I would say that that's a fallacy, because we know after having discussion that these grays are abducting human beings without their consent, which is evil, and therefore God is not evil. And if they are God, that proves that they're not God, because God does not perform an evil act.
Got it. On a question of your exorcism experience, would you ever consider stepping outside the box and putting everything into a movie from your perspective and really giving, your version of the story and letting people see from the inside out what happens?
No. I don't wish to sensationalize it.
Right. Would you put it in any written material?
I have. I've written a very simple book. It's Through the Eyes of an Exorcist. But it's a very simple... I'm an educator. I have a master's of education, a doctorate in ministry, and I love to educate people. I love to teach. That is a passion of mine. I'm not interested in movies, and that's me. I'm just not. Right. And so for me, what I'm more interested in is teaching people and getting my hands dirty and getting in with cases and involved with cases. And I think movies are a distraction, and for me, it would take my focus away from really being in the trenches with the paranormal groups where I need to be.
Okay. that's a great statement. And what about if you were invited to become a speaker, but not with, the direct religious message? Would you be able to sort of segment it into a discussion of both science and theological perspectives in a university setting, without really incorporating the true religious stuff behind it? Is it possible to do that?
Oh, certainly. I mean, you can easily talk about and that's one thing that I think everybody needs to understand, that I'm a skeptic. I'm a massive skeptic. So when someone comes to me and says that they have a case that in fact of possession, I am a skeptic, first of all. There's one of four things going on when someone says that they're possessed or their loved one is possessed. Number one, they're lying to you. Number two, they're telling they're just mistaken. There's something going on, but you can debunk it. Number three, they're mentally ill. Or number four, they're telling you the truth. I mean, it's one of those four things that's going on. And so number three and number four is what I'm concerned about, obviously, is if they're lying to you, then that's, I'm sorry, if they're mentally ill, that's a very serious problem. Because if you're dealing with someone who is schizophrenic, that is incredibly, incredibly dangerous. And if you're dealing with someone who truly is possessed, that's a whole new ballpark, whole new ball game all of itself. That's why I tell paranormal investigators, you have to be careful and you have to educate yourself, because you could be going into a home that someone's claiming to have demons in their house, and you walk into a home and the person is paranoid schizophrenic. And in fact, they could see you as a demon and attack you. A friend of mine actually did a case where she walked in and she saw all these holes in the walls. And she's like, well, what's going on here? And then she looked at a broom, and the broom had actually been ripped off, and the stick was only there with a great big huge butcher knife that had been duct taped to the end. This person had told this person that she'd been stabbing the demon every time she saw the demon flying in the house. So this woman had been stabbing the walls because she keeps seeing the demons.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and proceed with caution, especially, and contact
absolutely,
professionals, as you said. And where do you see yourself, though, 25, 30, 40 years from now? Do you think you'll still be doing what you're doing, or do you think that there'll become a point where you'll have to say, okay, I've tried to fight the good fight, but it's not changed the way that it's going on, and I just can't do it anymore?
I will do this until the day I die.
Right.
Because it's a calling. I understand that I don't charge for this. There's no money. There's no. This is a 100% ministry. When I go and I perform a blessing, a minor rite of exorcism, or even the solemn ritual of exorcism, I never charge, ever. You can't. You cannot charge ever. Anyone who ever charges is quite honestly, a fraud. Plain and simple. You cannot charge for performing the solemn rite or the minor rite. This is a ministry. That to me is that's defamation, slandering of the ritual. It really is. It's a terrible thing that you do, and so this is a ministry that is a calling, and I can't. There's no such thing as walk. It's like walking. Can you walk away from breathing?
And I've never heard this answer before, but for each exorcism that's accomplished and completed, do you get a special ranking? This might even sound absurd, but within the church or even the Vatican itself, because I know they hold the exorcism rite, as you were mentioning, very highly, and it's very, very well looked at. But do you get recognized personally for this?
Well, first of all, I'm the presiding Archbishop for the United States Old Catholic Church. So I studied for the Roman Catholic Priesthood for 6 years. And I was ordained a deacon priest and elevated to the episcopacy in the Old Catholic Church. For me, there's no ranking. I'm a servant. I'm a servant to the people. Before anything else, I'm a priest. And that means I'm a servant to the people. And there is no ranking. I'm an instrument in which God is using to perform a ritual to help a person who's dealing with severe spiritual issues. That is what I am, a servant. There is no ranking, there is no notoriety, there is no fame, there's none of that. I'm a servant of the people.
No, that's not what I meant, sir. What I was trying to get, has there been documentation of rituals performed, and if there is there somebody that has 200, 300, 400 under their belt?
I see. My apologies. All the exorcisms that I performed are documented. But please understand that exorcisms are rare. Possessions are rare. They're not rampant. And so someone who's truly possessed, it really is rare. But it does occur.
Well, we're already down to the last final minutes. And I have to say, this has been an absolute amazing conversation with you, sir. And I really am honored to have this chance to have spoken to you. And I hope you enjoyed yourself. And if you would like to come on again for a second show to get even deeper into this subject, I would be more than pleased to have you back, sir. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. And if you would kindly, can you give your website out and your email address so that people out there who may want to contact you can reach you? Sure. Yeah, it's paranormalclergy.com. And the Facebook thing, I think they can add me to Facebook. It's Bishop Long. Yes. I think it's facebook.com, Bishop Long. I think that's my address. So just, add me to the Facebook page, and I check that quite often. I'd be more than happy to communicate with anybody. Excellent. Well, you have yourself a great night, and happy July 4th on the 4th, and we'll speak very soon, sir. Sounds great. Thanks for having me on. Take care. All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye. What a great show, and very informative. Some stuff mentioned that I never thought of or heard of before, from the Catholic perspective, and some good points, and I hope everyone enjoyed this show. Please join me for my next program. It's in the next few days. It's going to be an interesting one as well. It's going to be Ken Gerhard, who's a cryptozoologist seen on Monster Inc., Monster Hunter Inc., and other various shows on the Discovery Channel. He's got his own books. We're going to talk about the big bird of Texas. It's a pterodactyl-like creature that many people are seeing, plus chupacabra, Bigfoot, and many other strange animals, and the paranormal in general. That will be on July 3rd, 2010 at 11 p.m. That's July 3rd, 2010 at 11 p.m. I hope you can join me then. And again, for everyone on Blog Talk Radio that tuned in tonight, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Everyone on the Facebook group, you're great, and appreciate the support. To all the Twitters and the YouTubers, MySpacers, you're all great too. Tune in next show, and we'll speak very soon.